Yo, what's up? Welcome back. I know it's super dark in this episode. That's because I decided to work out super late. For some reason. I don't really know why. I actually know why. I was like super unmotivated earlier. And so I kept telling myself, no, we're not going to the gym. No, we're not doing it. No. And then that little voice in my head that was like, you miss it once. You're gonna miss it again. And then again, and again, and then you're just going to stop going altogether. And so, I hate it when that little voice is right, but it's right. So, here we are, in a late version of this podcast. So, anyways, welcome back. I hope you're having a fan-freaking-tastic day. I got one, this one's for my videographers. I do photo video, so... this is more so for them than it is for photo people. So, I'm sorry. Don't worry. We got plenty for you photo people. We got, that stuff is there. But this one's for my home dogs because, I feel like videographers for the most part get left out of a lot of things. Like, there's no real, like, content days or anything like that. Like, you just gotta learn video on your own. And I don't feel like that's very fair. So, with that being said, this one's from my dogs. What's up, people? I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone, but there's a special place in my heart for videographers because it is a very underappreciated job, work, career, in my opinion. Because, especially on like wedding videographers, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying. Like, couples, the moment they get, like, sneak peeks or anything like that, it's, oh my gosh, like, ranting, raving, like, photos are plastered everywhere. They get the film, they go, thanks. And that's usually the last you hear of them. And that kind of sucks. It really hurts, you know? Because you put a lot of work and a lot of effort into stuff like that. But, that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about, is raw really necessary? Now, I understand in certain workflows like commercial and stuff like that it's probably a little more like necessary. You don't want to have to reshoot anything and go back in and you need to fix things. You're on studio time or like set time, you're hiring people, so like in that case you record raw just so you didn't just waste everyone's time if something's botched or over or underexposed or the white balance was wrong or anything like that. I get that setting. The main setting I don't get when people want raw and all this stuff is weddings. Do you shoot raw video at weddings? I gave this a try one time. Why? I'm not 100% sure, but I had the itch, because this was roughly like a year ago, and everyone was ranting and raving like freaking crazy about like how much better raw video was. And so I'm like, yeah, you got an extra, 2 bits of raw from 10 to 12. Like, everyone loves extra color, so that's always more welcomed. You can tweak your white balance after the fact, so you don't really have to pay attention to it too much. I say too much, you should still get pretty close in the ballpark. But like, is the color fidelity better? Like, all of that stuff. Is there actual more depth? Is there more dynamic range? And all of these questions kind of come into play because raw is just like, it's a raw format. It hasn't been tampered with. So I shot an entire wedding. We'll get the cons out of the way first, like, just so I don't sound like negative Nancy over here. And then we'll talk about the pros. Negatives first. The biggest downside that I noticed, that I was told anyways, is that I'll get extra dynamic range or more flexibility with dynamic range. That's false. I don't know if you've heard that before or if someone told you that. It's false. You do not get more dynamic range from shooting raw. just saying. That was I don't remember who I came across watching a video or who might have told me that, but it couldn't be more wrong. Just saying. And I was a little upset about that because I was shooting on the R5. So just keep in mind, like, the image, don't get me wrong, the image was insane. Like, the R5 still has a phenomenal image. But that made it really difficult to shoot the entire wedding with because I was very limited. Every second that I had, I would turn the camera off just so the internal timer or whatever was going on at the time would settle down. It was a very challenge. The ceremony, I didn't shoot the raw, but everything else I shot raw. So, because, like, let's be honest, like, you don't need, I mean, anyways, we'll get there. Getting ahead of myself. But yeah, no, you don't get more dynamic range. I think where this comes across is people will underexpose it to make sure they save their highlights and then edit like the shadows higher, or raise their midtones to give the appearance of more dynamic range. So if you didn't know, a lot of photographers do this technique. You underexpose your digital images, so that way you fake a better dynamic range, because digital cameras can save shadows a whole lot better than obviously film can, but film can save highlights better than digital can. So it's like a flip-flop. But if you want to fake more dynamic range than your camera can actually handle, underexpose it, save your highlights. And so I was under the impression I had more dynamic range than was actually there, and I did not underexpose that much. I think I did -1 EV, so there's that. So I was one stop underexposed, but to me it wasn't enough. Like, it was a bright day. Those highlights were gone. It was a bright sunny day, not a cloud in the sky, so it really stretched the dynamic range of the R5. But all that to say is that if anyone told you you get more, no, you don't. That is dead wrong. I will say, though, the biggest difference is you get to convert your raw footage into C-Log 2 after the fact. So it's like a workaround if you hate C-Log 3 like me. I'm just not a big fan of C-Log 3, FYI. If you haven't gotten that up until this point, I'm just not a fan of C-Log 3. It doesn't compress it as much, so you don't have to worry about that. So, I don't know, you definitely get a better roll-off because you're just in more control. If you're a control freak and you have to have your colors look a very specific way, they have to have this, I don't know, like, look to them, like, then sure, by all means, shoot it to your heart's desire. But I will say, I went through 2 512 cards. Yeah, these are obviously CF Express Type B because that's the only way you can shoot raw on the R5. Yeah, so I went through 2 512 CF Express Type B cards and half of one 256 gig, one 256 gig card. And holy cow, that's the other con, is goodbye storage space. If you are limited on storage or anything like that, good luck if you want to shoot raw, because it will annihilate any space that you have. especially like Canon's RAW, it is huge. It's a chunky boy. He's a thick guy. So when you're trying to shove it onto a card like that, he gonna take up a lot of space. It will not last long. It will just eat it all up. So yeah, that's the second con, is just storage space is just gone. Third con is that I noticed that RAW on most cameras, obviously this doesn't apply to every camera, will cause your camera to overheat significantly faster. Is apparently this is just a thing. I don't know why. Obviously on the R5 it gets cooked. The R5C even gets extremely hot when you shoot in RAW. Yes, you have a fan, so obviously that helps, but you could still feel the heat. Even when I had the C70 and shot RAW, it got significantly warmer, and you could feel you just feel the camera working its freaking butt off. Even the R3, when I shot 6K 60 on a little short film I wanted to make, yeah, it gets hot quick. And I live in Florida, so like down here, the temperatures and humidity, it's not in the camera's favor. I will say that. Like if you live up north and that is just not that big of an issue, I envy you, because down here it's just hot, 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 and your camera will overheat in 2 seconds. So that's what con number 3. So overheating is another thing you have to now look out for if you want to shoot RAW. Last con is, because it is RAW, there is no processing, so the noise level that you are now going to have to deal with to process is now much higher. It is just something that I feel like most people overlook when they start shooting RAW, and it will significantly add to your workflow and your computer's processing. It will, again, eat it up, because, man, I don't know if you've ever done like noise reduction on a computer. It's not your computer's friend. That is for sure. So yeah, that's the last thing. Now let's go on to the positives, because there are quite a few positives. First positive that I know, that's fairly obvious, is color fidelity and color depth. Because you're now moving from 10-bit to 12-bit, your gradients from colors are just so much better. Skin tones will look much better and much more accurate to what you shot the day of. That when you go back to 10-bit, they're gonna look a little more compressed. I won't say like they don't look that much worse, but they're definitely not as smooth. And you can just tweak certain like imperfections, like someone had like a little bit of acne on that day. I was able to grab that exact red, tweak it to where it blended very well on their skin. Yes, I tracked that, and that was not fun, and it took a while, but the shot now looks incredible because I was able to have that flexibility. Not every program can handle RAW, just saying, probably now. But back when I was doing that, that was not necessarily the case. I had to download like the Canon RAW like processor thing or whatever. It's like a whole application. But yeah, and then you can. I'm sorry, I think I skipped that con. Workflow will be extensively extended, like dramatically. If you think 10-bit is a dramatic workflow, wait till you touch RAW video. It is borderline, or dare I say, a nightmare. It's just there's importing the footage. So you have to obviously put it on a hard drive or something. Then you bring it into the Canon processor and then decode the raw so that I use Final Cut. So that way Final Cut can read it. I know DaVinci, you can just bring it straight in. I need to learn DaVinci, okay? I already know. Anyways, I just have a very easy workflow with Final Cut. So that's my preferred editor of choice. Anyways, that's besides the point. You have to bring it into the Canon RAW processor, change it to which log profile you would like to use. Obviously, I'm picking C-Log 2. And then you pick which like codec you want to transcode it to. I always did Apple ProRes because I'm using Apple products, so it's going to run much smoother on that. So I would do Apple ProRes 444 just so I keep as much color depth as I possibly can. Then I got to take that footage after it's been transcoded, import it into Final Cut, and then I can start editing it. It just adds, depending on how fast your computer is. Like if you're using the newest, like, I don't know, is it the M3 Ultra? I think something like that is just going to burn through how fast it can process those files. So it probably won't take nearly as long. I have an M1 Max. It's great for normal 10-bit and stuff like that, but RAW takes quite a bit longer still. But regardless, that was another con that I felt like I missed. Anyways, once you import it, the flexibility of the colors is insane. It is so nice that once you go back to 10-bit, it does become a little like, dang, I wish this was 10-bit or 12-bit RAW because I could fix this or I could change this and it would look easy. It would look better. Like, I don't know, there's just a lot more like depth to the colors and just it does look different. Obviously, this is not that noticeable after you export, but when you're editing and messing with the file, it's pretty apparent. The same way like 8-bit to 10-bit was, the same thing from 10-bit to 12-bit. It's like that. So, I don't know. Again, not worth it for me on a wedding day, but I did it anyways. And I don't know, I feel like it was a good learning opportunity because what I found is that you still have to expose it the same as you would. So you're not getting more dynamic range. You are getting more color information, but on a wedding day, as long as you're close enough in 10-bit, like, it's not really making a difference. And I have a look that I like to color grade and edit, and I thought that RAW might make that workflow like look better or make some sort of improvement, and it wouldn't. It just didn't. Like after I exported and watched it, it looked like just the rest of my other films color-wise. So I was a little disappointed in that, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just not worth it for wedding people. Documentary, this is where I struggle, is when I feel like you have enough time to control your environment and to dial in settings fast enough, and you have a few seconds or even minutes to like adjust your settings and stuff like that, like your white balance and things, which are things you should already be doing. I don't necessarily feel that RAW is beneficial to most videographers. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Like, let me know if you, like, whatever you shoot. I don't know, obviously, what you shoot because, I don't know, we're probably not that close. But leave a comment below. I would love to know, like, do you shoot RAW? Does it make that big of an impact on your editing and your final product? And if so, how? Because I've tried it a few times and I just don't see that much of a benefit. Obviously, I know there is a benefit in certain scenarios. Like I said earlier, like if you're shooting commercial or anything like that, where you have people on set and there's no time to rebook a reshoot or anything like that. I just thought it would give me more flexibility. And if the colors that day were out of whack or something like that, and I noticed that I just don't really run into stuff like that much, at least not on a wedding day. Like maybe in commercial stand like settings where even then, like I feel like you're controlling a lot of the environment. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mind being wrong about certain things, but when I know I'm right, I know I'm right. Like about the whole R3 video. Anyways, that's besides the point. Um, yeah, just let me know. I just don't feel like RAW is that beneficial as I want it to be. And I don't feel like the workflow justifies how clunky and big those file sizes are. The one camera that I would love to use to see how that's different, that I've been told it's different. Obviously, I haven't shot it yet, but like the red Komodo or Raptor, whichever red, I've heard that those are just very different and that Final Cut takes them and you can edit them straight in. You don't have to transcode and do all that stuff. So that's one I would love to try and give, you know, a good test to and see what happens. I've heard very high praises and stuff like that from them about that whole process. So that's one I would like to try. But other than that, yeah, let me know if it's that beneficial or not. To me, I feel like when you're learning and stuff like that, obviously you don't have the benefit most of the time. Your camera won't shoot raw. But don't take the hype from a lot of these other people that raw is going to give you so much more of a benefit and so much more dynamic range. It's not all that. It really isn't all that. Is it when you need it? Obviously, yes. But when do you need it? Because a lot of times there's just stuff that comes across as it looks more beneficial, and then when you actually put it into your own workflow, it's not as much as you thought it would, which was my case. So, again, let me know down below. We've been sitting here for a minute and not really driving, so I would love to know you guys' thoughts. With that being said, have a fantastic day. God bless you. I hope it's one of the best days ever. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.